Hello guys, welcome back to Archive Ryzen. In this video, I'm gonna talk about some explanation, guide and tips about Paradoxical Labyrinth. I'm gonna start from logic research in the Paradoxical Labyrinth. So there is so many things that we can upgrade in the logic research. But in here, I'm just gonna point out some important things that you need to upgrade first. For the first tier upgrade, the supply enhancement node can be very useful for beginner players or if your operative are easily getting killed by enemy or even when you want to solo a deduction. The first aid kit in here can be a lifesaver when you are in a critical moment. Because all you need is just to pause the game in a critical moment when you are about to get knocked down by the enemy and go to the supplies and use this first aid kit to heal your operative and give your operative another chance to survive. While the Recon Regiver can save you from getting hit by the tactical interference. And also, the level 5 upgrade of this node can give you a rebuild chip, where it can be used to revive your operative when your operative already got knocked down by the enemy. So this node is a very lifesaver node. But if your operative are already too strong or you are a professional player, then this node is not really important for you. While the second important node in here is Logistic Enhancement node. All you need to upgrade until level 3 because all we need in here is the Commander card. Because this Commander card can give you more option when you want to buy some buff in the shopping center. While the third thing you need to upgrade is this one, Intel Enhancement node. You need to upgrade the level 1 because level 2 and level 3 is kinda useless. Because this level 2 and level 3 can't give you many contribution or impact for your exploration later. Then all you need is to upgrade level 1 and you can skip this level 2 and level 3. While for the tier 2 upgrade, this buff enhancement node is the most important in here. You need to max out this node because this node is very useful. That can give you a lot of options when you want to pick some buff after a battle. While for the level 4 of this node upgrade can significantly increase the chance for you to encounter a tier 5 buff after a battle. So after you fully upgrade this node, finding a tier 5 buff will become a pretty common thing for you. And in order to reach this node, all you need is to upgrade based on your main DPS. Either your main DPS is a sniper operative or a submachine gun operative. Or you can go through the middle ways, but it will cost you a lot. But if your main operative is neither sniper operative or submachine gun operative, then I recommend you to upgrade from the bottom side. Because in the bottom side upgrade, you can gain increased movement speed a little bit. So, reposition your character will become more faster and safer after you upgrade this node. And for the tier 3 upgrade, this first gold node is the most important in here because it can give you initial labyrinth key so you can buy more buff in the shopping center. But if your main DPS lack of damage, then you can upgrade this attack enhancement node instead. Because increasing attack percent can be also very useful for your main DPS. So you can upgrade based on your main DPS operative weapons. Either your main DPS is a assault rifle user or a shotgun user. Or you can go through the middle ways, but it will give you less impact unless you are aiming to unlock this Windrill node. And then you can upgrade this Solo Elite node and went to the last tier upgrade. In this last tier upgrade, I also recommend you to upgrade from the bottom side because from the bottom side, we can upgrade this extra capital node to increase the labyrinth key you can retrieve after battle. So you can collect labyrinth key more faster and you can buy more buff in the shopping center. And then you can continue to upgrade the bottom node until you reach the exchange discount that can also help you to buy more buff in the shopping center. So if you manage to upgrade all these useful nodes in the logic research, looking for a good buff is not your main problem anymore. Because you will have a lot of superior buff like tier 4 or tier 5 buff. And also, you can always buy a lot of buff from the shopping center. I think that's all about the logic research. And the next one is the recommended difficulty if you wanted to farm for the deduction XP and intuition points. So there is 4 difficulty you can select before starting a deduction. The differentiation between 4 of these difficulty is the level of the enemy will become more higher, so the enemy will become more tougher and dangerous, and the chance for you to getting hit by tactical interference or a debuff effect will become more higher, and also there will be more enemy you will encounter from each battle. But there will be more deduction XP and intuition point that you can get after you finish a deduction. So after I play from this 4 difficulty, while avoiding as much battle as I can with the same squad, it turns out I can clear easy difficulty within 2.5 minutes. While for normal difficulty, I can clear it within 6.5 minutes. While for hard difficulty, I can clear it within 12.5 minutes. While for the danger difficulty, I can clear it within 20 minutes and 42 seconds. So after I put it in the calculation, you can see that if we're comparing all the difficulty against the danger difficulty, it turns out we can play easy difficulty for 8 times, normal difficulty for 3 times, and hard difficulty for 1.6 times, or we can say that it's 2 times hard difficulty. And you can see that the amount of deduction XP and intuition XP we can get after playing that much time, there will be more than playing the danger difficulty for 1 time. So if you are looking for the best difficulty to farming while considering the time effectiveness, then hard difficulty is the best difficulty for you to farm. But if you are a beginner players that need to struggle playing the hard difficulty, then you can play in the easy difficulty to farming. But the downside is you will need to play more time for the easy difficulty. You can also see from the experience per minute or intuition per minute for the comparison. You can see that hard difficulty and easy difficulty have a high experience per minute and high intuition per minute. So it's the best place for you to farming. Unless you are a whaler or having a very strong team that you doesn't need to struggle in the danger difficulty, then maybe you can farming in the danger difficulty. Because farming in the danger difficulty is more fun and more challenging. And the next one is the most recommended archetype or weapons for clearing this Paradoxical Labyrinth. But before I talking about this, I'm gonna explain a little bit about our new boss Njal. So Njal weak spots are being covered by impenetrable armor, so most of the time you can't deal crit damage to the things. You can only see the weak spot when Njal destroys the armor itself. You can see in this footage this is how its weak spot looks like. While this weak spot is showing up, you can deal crit damage from your shooting damage to the thing. And because most of the time we can't deal crit damage to the things, that's why Katia clan become the most superior operative that can fight against Njal, because Katia clan can deal a high amount of DPS even without dealing crit damage to enemy. That's why she is the most recommended operative when you want to fight against Njal. Or you can use operative that have natural crit rate, for example Shotgunner or Fanny Cornet that have a high crit rate because her Dewa skill can increase her crit rate a lot. Or you can use Logistic that have crit rate talent, so your operative can have a little bit crit rate percent and can deal crit damage even without shooting at the enemy weak spot. Or you can prolong the weak spot exposure by freezing or slowing the Njal when the weak spot is showing up, so you can keep dealing crit damage more longer until the weak spot being covered. Or you can just use Mox Your Shadow support skill, so you can still deal crit damage even without shooting at the enemy weak spot. But this one requires you to have Mox Your Shadows when you want to deal with Njal. So that's all about the many ways that you can deal against Njal. And here I'm gonna explain the most recommended weapon for you to use in Paradoxical Labyrinth. The first one is crossbow weapon. Currently, we only have one operative who use crossbow weapons. And of course, crossbow weapon have the high effectiveness because crossbow weapon can switch between single target or multi-target mode, so it can be used for clearing mobs or when you want to fight against boss. And currently, there is only 4 boss we can encounter from this Paradoxical Labyrinth. Well, we can also encounter Katia, but she is much weaker and easier to defeat to include as a boss. So there is 4 boss, that is a heavy armored boss, Joseph Joestar, a heavy armored and have a destructible part, Falconer, a heavily shielded boss, Balfour 13, and a heavily shielded and also well protected weak spot, Anjal. And if you want to talk about the effectiveness of crossbow weapon against all of these boss, crossbow weapon can deal with heavy armored boss or even have a destructible part enemy. Because crossbow weapon have the lowest ricochet rate among all fast fire rate weapon. So crossbow weapon effectiveness when deal with heavy armored enemy is more effective than assault rifle. And if you manage to upgrade Cardiac Lane to Manifestation 2, her effectiveness when dealing with enemy that have destructible part can become even more higher. While for the heavily shielded enemy, because Cardiac Lane is a shooting dependent operative, she can still deal twice amount of damage against shield. That's why her effectiveness against shielded enemy is still high. While against Anjal, because Anjal weak spot are very well protected, so you can't deal crit damage to Anjal, but that doesn't become a problem when come to Cardiac Lane, because Cardiac Lane doesn't even need to deal crit damage, she can already produce a high DPS against Anjal. So Cardiac Lane is a natural enemies when you want to deal with Anjal. And the next one is Shotgunner. Well, most of Shotgunner can easily deal with a lot of mobs because most of them have a good survival ability and also have a crowd control skill. And when it comes to boss, of course Shotgunner can easily deal with heavy armored boss because shotgun weapon have a low ricochet rate. And when dealing with heavy armor and have a destructible part boss, shotgun weapon can destroy destructible part very fast. And when dealing with heavily shielded boss, because most of shotgun weapon user are shooting dependent operative when dealing damage, so their effectiveness against shielded enemy are very high, because they can keep dealing twice damage against the shield. While against Anjal that have a heavily protected weak spot, shotgun weapon user can still dealing crit damage even without shooting at the enemy weak spot. That's why they still have a high effectiveness against Anjal. But the problem is, shotgun weapon user will need to fight in a close combat against Anjal. That's why it's kinda dangerous when you want to use shotgun weapon user, because it will require your professionalism to dodge all of the Anjal attack in a close combat. Unless you have a very good survival ability buff to protect your shotgunner main DPS. While the next one is assault rifle. Most of assault rifle have a good skill, so their effectiveness when comes to clearing mobs are unquestionable. But when come to against boss, for heavy armored and indestructible part boss, assault rifle can still works very well against them because assault rifle ricochet rate are still high and effective when dealing with heavy armored enemy, so you still able to destroy a destructible part from the enemy boss. While against heavily shielded enemies, the effectiveness will become more lower because most of assault rifle weapon user are hybrid damage dealer between shooting damage and skill damage. So when their skill damage can't deal twice damage to the enemy shield, it can decrease their DPS a lot when dealing against enemy that have shield. But at least they still have a high shooting damage that enough to quickly destroy the shield from the shielded enemy. While for Anjal, because you can't deal crit damage against Anjal, so your fight against Anjal when using assault rifle will become more longer because of Anjal have a very thick shield. But at least unlike shotgun weapon user, assault rifle weapon user can fight against Anjal in a safe distance. So you will have more survivability when you using assault rifle to deal with Anjal. And the next one is sniper rifle user. Of course, they are having problem when fighting against mob, so you will need a support operative that have a crowd control support skill. For example, Acacia Kaguya. So you will need to struggle a little bit when you use sniper rifle user fighting against a lot of mobs. But when fighting against boss, sniper rifle user have a high effectiveness against heavy armored boss or enemy because sniper rifle have the lowest ricochet rate among all weapons. Whilst against heavily shielded enemies, sniper rifle still have a high effectiveness against shielded enemy because as long as they can still deal crit damage to the shielded enemy, they can destroy the shielded enemy very fast. But when it comes to Anjal that didn't have weak spot, sniper rifle weapon user will struggle a lot if you didn't have Mark Your Shadows. so the sniper rifle effectiveness against Angel is very low. Make sure to always bring Moxie Shadows if you want to fight against Angel with sniper rifle, unless you have a very good luck to get all the strong buff to deal with Angel. And the next one is pistol weapon user, because most of pistol weapon user are skill dependent operative, where most of their skill are multi-target skill, so their effectiveness when dealing against mob is unquestionable. But when come to boss, against heavy armored boss, their effectiveness are still good. But when it comes to heavy armor and have multi-destructible part, their effectiveness will decrease a lot, because your skill will randomly attack the multi-part and can't deal a lot of damage, so you will need to depend on your shooting damage to the enemy weak spot. While against the heavily shielded enemies, because most of the skill can't deal double damage to shield, then you will need to struggle a lot when deal with shielded enemy using pistol weapon operative. Unless you have a very strong buff to buff your skill damage or your shooting damage, so your skill or shooting can deal a lot of damage and destroy their shield more faster. And when come to Angel that have a very thick shield and also didn't have a weak spot, pistol weapon user that very skill dependent operative can have a very hard time to deal with the Angel shield, because skill can't deal double damage to shield, and also your shooting damage can't deal crit damage to Angel. That's why you will struggle a lot when using pistol weapon. While the last one is submachine gun weapon user. Most of submachine gun weapon user are very good when dealing with mobs because of their hybrid damage dealer that comes from shooting damage and skill damage. But when come to boss, their effectiveness against Joseph Joestar might still good because of their skill can still hit a heavy armored boss without getting ricochet. And if you keep aiming and shooting at a Joseph Joestar weak spot, you can lower the ricochet rate from your weapons, so you can still maintain a high DPS against heavy armored enemy. But when it comes to enemy that have destructible part, your effectiveness against them will become more lower, because first you will need to destroy the destructible part by using your submachine gun. And when you want to destroy the destructible part, you will see a very crude sight from the submachine gun weapon, where almost all of your bullets are getting ricocheted by the enemy armor, so your effectiveness will become very lower when dealing with Falconer. While against heavily shielded boss, your effectiveness will also become very lower because your skill can't deal double damage to the enemy shield, so you will only depend on your shooting damage to destroy the enemy shield. Then you will need to struggle a lot when dealing with Balfour 13. While against Angel, it will become a nightmare because first that thing have shield to protect itself from your skill damage, and also that things have a very well protected weak spot, so your shooting damage can't deal crit damage, so it won't deal much damage to the enemy shield. So against Angel, it will become a nightmare for a submachine gun weapon user. I think that's all about the recommended weapons for the Paradoxical Labyrinth. Well, for assault rifle, shotgun, sniper rifle, pistol or submachine gun weapon user, their effectiveness against each boss might change if you have Moxie Shadow's support skill, because Moxie Shadow's support skill can bypass the enemy weak spot and also amplify your damage. So if you have Moxie Shadows, then don't forget to bring Moxie Shadows to help you in Paradoxical Labyrinth. I think that's all for now. This is the first part of the explanation. There will be more things that I will explain in the upcoming videos. I think that's all for the first part. If you like my videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all for me. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Cheers.